We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day's going well. It is, what is it, Saturday? It is Saturday. And we have a guest on the show today. And as luck would have it, a brand new guest, somebody you've never heard from before, somebody you've never seen before. In fact, she and I are just meeting for the first time now. We've talked in emails, but first time on the program. Her name is Karen. She's from North Carolina. And she said, I'd like to come on the show. And I go, what about tonight? Ed bailed on me. So I need somebody. And she said, sure. And I gave you credit for having the courage to just jump on feet first with no advance notice.
I appreciate that. It might be the easiest way to do this, just kind of dive in and not have too much time to stress or worry about it. I worked yesterday. I worked 12-hour shifts. So when you messaged me earlier, I hadn't bathed yet or anything today. I was just like in full on slob mode. So I rushed and at least took a shower for you and have
Well,
coffee.
not necessary, but I appreciate it. And Karen's a pharmacy tech down in North Carolina. Uh, um, the question I have for you is, you're a Gen X down in North Carolina. How is it you happen upon this grouping of folks here that listen to the Rational Boomer podcast and the TikToks and what have you?
Well, I've always been my whole adult life, kind of a political junkie. Actually, I might even go back a little bit further than that now that I think about it. Um, and so around here, obviously, I'm like a blue dot in the Red Sea. In the now North Carolina, they keep saying it's kind of purple, not red or blue. And I think in some of the bigger cities, obviously Charlotte, Raleigh, that's true. You have
Right.
a lot of different, populations that are moving to the area. The growth is booming here. But I live in a more rural part and it is very red.
Yeah.
And it's very, very frustrating. So, anyways, I've always liked politics. I'm also a big sports person, football, baseball. And I lost your picture. I don't know if we're still good, but
Yeah, no, we're still good. I got a problem with the connection here. Okay.
okay. So,
There we go.
anyways, I'm a huge Braves fan. I've been a Braves fan since I was a small child. And long story short, they're not doing so great this year because of injuries and stuff. And so when Harris got announced, when Biden stepped aside, I just kind of had this resurgence of hope because it felt kind of flat. Politically, it felt kind
Right.
of flat. There wasn't a lot of excitement. And since baseball is usually my summertime distraction and it was not very enjoyable at the moment, I just kind of dove headlong back into kind of my love of politics. And since it felt hopeful, not that, I mean, I would have voted Biden, trust me, I'm
Yeah,
straight
yeah.
him all the time, but it just felt very lackluster and it felt kind of bleak. And around here, all I hear from coworkers, I have one or two sane ones, the rest are full on in the Trump Kool-Aid, and it's miserable. So it feels great to feel hopeful. And I've listened to a couple of other podcasts, obviously Midas Touch, most of us do. And my husband happened to send me just at random, we'll send each other at work during the day reels and stuff back and forth,
Yeah.
and he happened to send me one of yours. And he's like, listen to this, it's really relatable. And I saw at the top it said Rational Boomer, and I was thinking, oh, boomer. But because my mom is like the oldest. She's born, well, technically she's 1 year shy of being a boomer. She's born in 45. But I was just kind of thinking like, oh, I don't know. And then when you started talking, I was like, oh my gosh, like our beliefs are very, very, very similar.
But when I went on TikTok, a lot of people thought it was ill advised, and they always says you have to have a niche. And I don't have a niche. At least I didn't think I had a niche. And my niche apparently is I look the way I do. I happen to be a boomer, and I talk about more liberal tendencies in politics. So that's my niche. I don't look, or nor am I the age that should be talking the way I do. So apparently that the boomer part, people go, oh fuck. Um, but it's interesting you bring up that you're a blue dot in this red area, and Kamala takes over. It gets really exciting, as we know. The debate just happened. Are you hearing anything out of the red folks in your area about the debate? Any kind of reaction to that?
They got real quiet.
Yeah, I bet they did.
It's funny because I have one other coworker that we're really tight, and we are similar beliefs. So she has a daughter that's LGBTQ community, and she feels like her beliefs and stuff have obviously broadened, with what her daughter goes through and
Sure.
everything. And so we'll kind of be each other's sanity at work, because the rest of them, it feels just like, I don't know, hillbilly central. But they were definitely quiet. It was funny how when Kamala first announced, they were all, kind of making fun of her, and she's going to take away your guns. And of course, that's their big thing around here, which is so annoying. But um, it's funny how at work yesterday, one of the ones who, back when Trump got sentenced, he was like, he got railroaded. And then yesterday, he asked me a couple questions. I think he was trying to feel me out because I purposely try not to talk about how I feel around them, because I know I'm outnumbered. But
Yeah,
he
it's
was
probably
kind of trying
best.
to, yeah, he was kind of trying to feel me out. And when I was talking, I was trying to talk in generalizations and be really PC, and I'll try to behave myself here because I can have a potty mouth. But
No, hey, wait a minute. You've heard the show before, right?
yeah, yeah, I know you do.
You don't have to hold back at all. Just I'd be hurt if you held back. So please feel free.
But yeah, I was talking yesterday, and he was trying to act like he didn't know or understand, or didn't really know what was going on. And I know I said enough that he could tell I probably wasn't in his camp, so to speak. But yeah, it's what's encouraging to me is there are so many other people in this state that are like, I've started to kind of venture out and scroll more on like Instagram and Threads and TikTok, and there are other North Carolinians that are really, I don't know, they're showing like lawn signs in their neighborhood and stuff like that, and it's definitely a movement. I feel like North Carolina might go blue.
No, I think you're right. It is a movement, and I was surprised too. I think it has to do with the fact that the Trumplefucks Republicans are just louder than everybody else, so it seems like they're more. But when you look at Donald Trump's base, we're talking 25, maybe 30% of the country, which is a lot, but not enough to win an election. I think more and more now, the way things are going and the way things are happening, Democrats are starting to speak up. They're starting to get loud themselves, and the Republicans don't know what the fuck to do with that because they're bullies. And when people start to push back, they get nervous. And I think they're getting nervous right now.
That's what I was thinking when I was looking at the poll results like first post debate, and they were showing um what, like 32 or 37% thought that Trump won, like in a national poll or whatever. And I thought maybe that's roughly about the percentage of like dyed in the wool, like
Yeah,
maggots that
probably
there
right.
are in the general population, because no sane person could have watched that and legitimately thought that he won.
No. Donald Trump doesn't even think he won. That's why he's
Yeah.
doing all this crazy shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, it's just encouraging. I totally got back into this just from feeling excited again. It feels good to feel hopeful. This reminds me of the Obama days, the
It
early one.
does. It does. And one of the things that one of the reasons you emailed me just recently is about this whole ridiculous issue from Donald Trump's comments in the debate and all that's happening with Springfield, Ohio. Um, were you watching? You were watching the debate, right?
Yes, I was sitting here. My husband, he works shift work. He'd gone to bed. I'm sitting down here. I've got my own little setup in the kitchen with TV and everything. And I'm sitting here with my cats and dogs, childless cat lady here, by the way. I've been married a long time, but we don't have kids. So, but I was sitting in here watching this debate like you would watch a football game or whatever. I had my snacks and camped out
That's
and
how it was.
cheering and hooting and hollering. Yeah.
It was like a sporting event. When you heard him say Haitians or immigrants eating pets, what was your first reaction to that?
I'd already heard it because I listened to several podcasts and stuff. Yours is my favorite, by the way.
I appreciate that.
um, Midas Touch had done a thing on it, and I had actually, he sends out several little pods, like he
Yeah.
does. I can't follow how many exactly he has, but there are some that are like an hour plus long, and then there are some that he puts out 2, 3 times a day that are 14, 15 minutes,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And he had done a short one on this Ohio thing. And at first, when I was listening to it, I was like, are we being punked? Like, this is freaking preposterous. Like, what in the hell? And I forwarded the pod to my husband at work. And I said, listen to this crap. Is this even like sounds like a joke? But meanwhile, I had just read a comment on it may have been from your podcast earlier, Will, where somebody said that back in Miami in the 70s there was an influx of Haitians and the same sort of rumor went around. So I don't know if that's true. I don't remember that. I was a kid in the 70s, but um I'd already heard it. And when I knew what she did because she had that question on immigration. And she had given the response about him blocking that bill and calling some friends and whatever. And then after that, before she paused, she said, I want to invite you to attend one of his rallies. And when she launched into the insult on the rallies, I thought, it's on.
Yeah.
And he lost his mind at that point. I don't think he ever fully recovered from that.
No, I don't think he did. And I think, I was talking about this before when he went to that card, the eating the pets thing, he was in kind of a panic or a frenzy. And when narcissists get that way, they pull anything out. They will burn the bridges, they will scorch the earth, they will say anything. I'm certain that his people never wanted him to talk about that. But when he kept saying something and it wasn't working like he's used to having it work as a bully,
Mhm. He
he
just
just
kept
kept
digging.
he keeps going bigger and bigger and bigger, and he always makes a fool out of himself. The thing that troubles me most about this is that he says it, he's fact checked on the spot, proved to be wrong. Next day, he's shamed for it. I mean, he's made a joke of for it. And what's he do? He doubles down, he triples down, he starts
And
talking about it
JD
again.
Vance, I mean,
And
JD
JD
Vance kind
Vance.
of started it because JD Vance had kind of fed into it, into like him finding out about it and all this stuff. And oh, I'm from Ohio, I'm hearing this, that kind of thing. But when they interviewed Vance, like shortly after the debate, he doubled down and there's so many things about him that are infuriating. But there have been multiple occasions in all these media blunders that Vance has made where he will never ever just show an ounce of humility and
Yeah.
back down a little bit and say, oh, I didn't mean it that way, or I'm sorry, I hurt someone's feelings, or whatever. He always just doubles down and just doesn't have any kind of ounce of self-awareness or
Well, and that's the thing with that narcissists do. They can never admit they're wrong, never admit that they've lost. But so anyway, he doubles down again. And then the city of Springfield starts getting bomb threats, and the people in Springfield are
yes.
absolutely terrorized. So you would think any normal human being would go, maybe we took it a little
It's
too
the bridge too
far.
far, right? Yeah.
But the next day he doubles and triples down again, and uh, the bomb threats and such continue. And these people are terrified. They got out of their country because they were terrified. They come here now, they're terrified, and they're trying to decide what to do. And these people are in the country legally. They're there to work and do what have you. But then Donald Trump takes it even a step further. Toward the end of the day, he says, I'm going to deport, so many million people, and I'm going to start with the Haitians in Ohio.
And
I mean,
it's
these poor people just trying to make a living, man.
Yeah, it's infuriating. And they're here legally. They're not like people that, that he thinks have snuck over the border or whatever. They are here legally. They just are not citizens yet. And who knows? I think I'd heard that some of them may eventually go back if the area, I think there's unrest where they were from. But the fact of the matter is, I think they were invited to that town because that town was struggling, like industry, jobs, that kind of thing. I don't think they had enough people to work certain jobs. For white people to be so afraid that immigrants are taking their jobs, there are so many jobs that are beneath them that they need workers for. And these Haitians were working. I don't know if it was an owner or just a manager at one of those factories or plants said that they show up for work, they work better, they don't call out sick, they don't play a lot of the games that a lot of employees play,
Yeah.
that they were good workers. And then to hear today that they've kept their kids home from school because they're scared to send their kids to school. They're being harassed. They're fearful to leave their homes. It's just maddening. It's infuriating. And then what their bomb threats called into City Hall and a couple of elementary schools.
All right.
I mean, this is a stunt that has gone way further. I mean, it was egregious enough with the just kind of overt racism of the whole thing when it began.
Right.
Because just like, I don't know if you saw, like Anna Navarro had said, would it have the same impact on people? Would Trump have said, if it was a Scandinavian community, would he
Exactly.
made these same, so there's quite overt racism. He'll deny it, but it is. And then you're just kind of wreaking havoc on this community that hasn't done anything wrong.
Right.
It makes me so mad. I just want to know, like, this is a 34 count convicted felon. How can he get away with this? This to me should be punishable legally. I don't have the legal knowledge, but to me it seems like it's domestic terrorism in a way.
It is absolutely domestic terrorism, and he certainly should be culpable for this. I mean, this seems to be habitual with Donald Trump. He incited people to be violent against election workers in Georgia. He incited violence at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, and now these Haitian folks, the daughter of a judge, a prosecutor. These people are getting harassed with death threats and bomb threats and all kinds of crazy shit. And you ask, is it illegal? Well, here's what we do know. The January 6th trial that they just sent another superseding indictment, clearly is some laws against it, at least at that level, because he's going on
Mhm.
trial for it. In as far as doing it to individuals or businesses or organizations, I would think it is. But here's the thing that I'm guessing. I think something will fall out of this, and Donald Trump will have to pay a price for it because he did it right on fucking national television.
Right.
But there's so much shit going on right now, and everything kind of hinges on the election. He's going to lose the election, and I think he's going to lose by a big amount. I really do, in spite of polls and all this stuff. Once that election is over, the world is going to fall in on Donald Trump. He's got all the issues we already know about. There'll be new issues, new lawsuits. He will be ground into an oil spot when this is all said and done.
I want to sit back with popcorn and watch.
I can't, I'm not one to take joy from somebody's misery, but it'll make an exception in this case because it
Yeah,
will
that's
be quite
that's how I
enjoyable.
feel too. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel too. It's like I was just enjoying that whole debate, just watching her go after him and him having to stand there and take it. He like it was wonderful because no one ever seems to stand up to him like that. They
No,
always seem to cower or like kiss his butt. And I saw him at one point start with the accordion hands, and I've watched like Michael Cohen say that is. I mean, obviously we could probably figure that out for ourselves. But he said whenever he does the accordion hands, that's a tell he's lying.
yeah.
Whenever he starts recounting stories and he starts with, "Sir, they told me so and so." Whenever he gives his "sir" stories, he's lying. It's like, so it was nice to watch him squirm. I
Now,
loved it.
now when you started to feel some relief and some excitement about the election when Kamala Harris was made the nominee or the presumptive nominee, was it because you thought she was so good and you knew she would fight back, or was it all about the excitement that started up underneath her?
It was probably a combination because I personally like Biden. I liked Biden. I thought he was a great vice president for Barack Obama because I
I do
thought it
too.
gave Obama, being a newbie, it gave
No,
him seasoned, somebody with years in Washington that knows how to get things done, that kind of thing. So I like Biden, and I think he's done an admirable job. But I knew there's a lot of ambivalence about him, and all the crap from the 3.5 years that he's already been in office, all the "let's go Brandon" bullshit, and all the Trump-fucks that I work with. Anything goes wrong or anything negative, it's thanks Biden, that kind of crap. So I felt kind of like we're gonna freaking lose this because of just the temperament. And you have to keep in mind that I'm steeped in it around here. It's like it I definitely feel like I'm in the minority. And so it's like when it came across my phone one day, I was off work, my husband was working, and it said that, Biden had announced that he was gonna step down
right.
or step away. And I texted my husband, I said, "Isn't it too freaking late into this to even do this? Like, what the hell?" And I said, "I'm scared to death because to me, it seemed like and maybe I wasn't as dialed into politics at the time, but it didn't seem like during a lot of Biden's administration that she didn't seem to take a very prominent role, at least in the headlines and stuff like that.
Right.
She was kind of under the radar a bit.
Right.
And so I was just like, who's going to step up? I didn't think about like who. Now I look at it and it seems like the Democrats have a deep bench. Like when you watched all those people at the DNC that were speaking and stuff, I was like, there are a lot of stars here waiting in the wings, kind of. But
Right.
in the moment when I first read that he had stepped down, I was like, there's no like new Barack Obama on the bench. Like, who the hell is going to step up? And then he said he was going to give his support to her eventually a little bit later. And I was like, I remember thinking back before when she was a candidate, that I liked her. I thought she seemed tough, and I thought her background as a prosecutor and stuff like that, being a DA, that she had some qualifications for handling,
Right.
personalities, criminals, whatever. And so I started feeling a little bit excited. And then I started thinking, because I live in the South, will America elect a woman of color? I was a Hillary fan. I know she's very divisive, but I was a Hillary fan, and I thought she was going to win,
A lot of
I
people
thought it
did.
was going to be a nail biter, but I thought she was going to win. And I know she did win the popular vote, but I was like, I feel like Trump came along when he did, because especially when you live in the South and you see all the crap I see with racism and stuff like that, I feel like Trump came to power because basically the hillbillies of the world could not handle that we had a black president.
I agree. I agree. Well,
So
I
with
was,
her, it made me nervous.
yeah. Well, when they were talking about Joe Biden stepping aside, I said here and on TikTok that I think it would be a bad idea for Biden to step aside. Yeah, he's slow. Yeah, he's got this issue. And the media is working against him. I still thought he could beat Donald Trump, not so much because he was a brilliant.
They could have wheeled him out like Weekend at Bernie's, and I'd have voted for him.
Right, right. I mean, in 2020, he won by 7 million votes, not because he was a top-notch candidate or he was a ball of fire. He wasn't. They voted for Joe Biden because they hated and they feared Donald Trump.
Trump fatigue
They
for
hate
sure.
him more and fear him more now. So I thought Joe Biden could have beaten Donald Trump, and I still think that's the case. I was afraid when he stepped aside that one of two things would happen. They'd have to start out from the beginning with 4 months left. And I got the impression that some of the Democrats wanted to jump over Kamala and pick
Mm-hmm.
somebody else of their choosing. And I thought that would have been a huge mistake, because if they did that, that would basically alienate people of color. Why
True.
can't the black vice president female run for president? Uh, and I think Joe Biden was calculated in what he did. He said, all right, motherfucker, you want me to step aside? I'll step aside, but you got to take Kamala because I'm going to endorse her. And then they were stuck. And then when this snowball started going down the hill, all the people were thinking twice about Kamala, said, fuck, I'll get on board because I'm just going to get run over if I don't. So everything kind of worked out the way it's supposed to. I never
It
imagined it would.
really started to feel kind of like it's destiny, like it's meant to be.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, because when I first saw that blurb come across my phone, I felt nervous as hell, and I thought, are we going to have to endure 4 more years of Trump? And bottom line, point blank, period, whoever they were going to put up as a candidate was going to get my vote.
Right.
But I was just like, will the rest of America, enough of us, follow suit? And then I don't know, she came out with, there was an energy behind it and kind of this groundswell. And I just thought, I think she can do this. I really do.
When we talk about destiny, I think there's another part of this destiny. You said something earlier that everybody would say: is this country ready for a woman president? Is this country ready for a black woman as president? And I think she's coming around at an opportune time, because I think the fact that she's a woman and that she's a woman of color is of less importance than it would be under normal circumstances, because they got an ogre to kill. So they need an ogre killer, and they have an ogre killer, and they don't give a fuck who the champion is, whether woman or man or white or black or anything. So she's kind of come along at the right time when her color and when her gender don't matter as much as saving democracy. So this
Absolutely.
is an opportunity for her to come in, do a great job, and then after that, we never have to ask that question again.
And I think she's got the perfect personality and temperament for it.
I do too.
She seems, I don't know how she feels on the inside, but on the outside, she seems calm under pressure. I do think having a background, having to litigate cases, and I think that that helps. I
Yeah.
think that she kind of knows how to handle people. I know you could tell in the debate in the first few minutes that she was nervous. I could pick up on
Yeah,
it. She
yeah,
was
I
a
did too.
little awkward, and I was like, oh. Um, but I think that she just kind of had to get her legs under her. And then, once she kind of got that zinger in there and he reacted, I think she knew she had him at that point.
Yeah, I
And it
think
was
when
kind of
she,
like, it almost felt like it was like a court thing. Like she knew she had him on the ropes and she just kept going.
yeah, I think when she landed the first punch, the to Donald, and she saw his reaction and how he was flustered by it. She got her confidence, and then she just kind of rolled after that. And
Hmm.
that's what it takes when you're in a sporting event or when you're in a debate or something. Once you got your confidence and you just react and you just kind of naturally do whatever you do, and you can notice it too. Now, I don't know if you've noticed it in the rallies when they show us cuts now. She's a lot happier and
Hmm.
she's a lot more confident. She was confident in the first place, but in her head, I know she's thinking, "I got this."
Yeah, I mean, that had to be like a big weight off her shoulders to have to confront him face to face. And like everybody said, you said it, Will said it earlier, and I've heard on other podcasts. He quite obviously the rest of that debate wouldn't even look at her. I mean, really
No,
all that debate from the moment she strode over and kind of forced him to shake her hand. I mean, did you notice when she went over for him to shake her hand, she was well beyond the halfway mark. She had to go to
yeah,
him. He was trying to avoid it, the little weasel. But once she strode over there and shook his hand, I thought she kind of at that moment gave a little bit of impression to him, like I'm the alpha here. And then when she landed that first blow, certainly. And now I do. I see like this. Obviously, she's been in my state yesterday. Um, the rally in Charlotte, and then the one in Greensboro. And you can kind of see there's a little more pep in her step, a little
yeah,
lightness.
yeah.
It's great. I think that she just kind of needed that little bit of face to face for all the things that she landed in that debate. The absolute best part to me was when she looked him dead in the eye and told him how other world leaders and generals thought he was a disgrace.
Yeah.
I was just like, I was in here like fist pumping and cheering. I was just like, she just ate his lunch and left no crumbs.
Yeah, yeah, he did. She did. And what amazed me, what I was impressed by with Donald Trump, knowing narcissists as I do, when you hit them that hard and corner them that much, that's generally when they lose their shit. Now, he was unhinged, and you could hear he was angry because his voice was raising and he was saying anything that came in his head. But usually by that point, if they're hit that hard and embarrassed in front of a big audience, I don't know, just 67 million people, they usually lose it. And that's what I was hoping for him to do, that she'd keep
I
gnawing at
half
him and gnawing him
expected
and
that he
she'd
might
blow up.
walk off at some point, but he didn't.
I did too, because that's another thing that they would typically do. So I give Donald Trump credit for hanging in there and taking the blows. And well, I can't say he didn't get weird or didn't get crazy, but he didn't blow up like I expected him to do,
Hmm.
because it sounds like he has that propensity when he's behind the scenes that he yells and screams a lot.
Well, I think it's hilarious because I have read a couple of memes and stuff that said it's apparently for all of his racism and underhanded crap that he's done, it seems like strong black women are his kryptonite because like Judge
Oh,
Ken and it's just
Chutkin, Fonnie
yeah,
Willis. Yeah, I love
yeah,
that.
Bonnie Willis,
Letitia
Letitia
James.
James. Yeah,
Yeah.
strong black women are what is going to finally take that fool down. I can't wait.
Well, you have to remember Donald Trump thinks he's superior to everybody,
Mhm.
especially women of color. He sees them as lesser. So when they come up and continually kick his ass, he doesn't know what to do with it.
Right.
Usually he's been able to push back or bully somebody, but Letitia, Fani, Chutkin, and Kamala Harris, they ain't backing down. And he's confused. He doesn't know what to do with that. And he's a coward because he's a narcissist. So he's not big on going in and entering the fight. He's used to trying to get people to cow from him, or he just runs away. And that's what I'm waiting for, is that period of time when he just bolts. That may be what's happening now. Kamala said, yeah, let's have a couple more debates. And he said, yeah, no, I don't want any of that smoke. I don't want to do that.
I had seen something yesterday where somebody asked him again about that, and he basically had said that he would possibly think about doing one on Fox, but it would have to be he wouldn't. It was a couple of the regulars on there, Brett Baer, somebody else, that he would not, because basically post debate they gave a real assessment, as real as you get on Fox, with some criticism of him, and that hurt his little delicate feelings. And so
uh,
basically he would only do it with like Laura Ingraham or Hannity. And I was like, whatever, I don't think you will, honestly.
I'm
I'm
not sure.
still waiting to see if Walls and Vance are going to still happen.
I'm not sure that will happen either. But Anthony Scaramucci, who was a friend of Donald Trump's for a while and also worked for him for what 11 days, he came out yesterday and said, "Oh, he's definitely going to debate him." I mean, he's into the whole WWE, UFC mode. He got his ass kicked. He knows he got his ass kicked, and he needs to try to redeem himself. Scaramucci thinks he's just playing this game, trying to play coy, just to try to build it up, and then he can make more excuses. Well, I didn't want to do it, but I'm going to do it for the people. And if he thinks being on Fox News is going to save him, I think that he might be mistaken. I think
Right.
Kamala Harris can kick his ass just about anywhere. He's an
Yeah.
idiot.
Yeah, it angered me so much about the spin that Fox and all the Trump cronies tried to do after the debate on being butthurt about him being quote unquote fact checked, when it was really only three things that were fact checked, and those were things. I mean, what he's told 33 plus lies in the debate,
Yeah.
and they only called him on the three that were, I mean, they were the most egregious. It was the eating of the pets thing, and it was the basically executing babies after they're born
Yeah.
lie. I mean, they went only after the things that were the most over the top, and it's like he got his feelings hurt that anyone dared to question him on anything. That's why that was my whole question about like Springfield. Like, at what point when you start telling blatant over the top lies that are harmful, does the media, does the law, somebody not step in and say like enough is enough?
Yeah. Well, I'll grant you that another debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, wherever it might be, would be entertaining. But for me, I'm thinking to myself, we got less than 2 months before the election. Kamala Harris did a perfect job. It was a perfect debate. She's not going to improve on it. She's just going to do another one like she just did, or maybe if Fox News tries to trip her up or makes it unfair or something. I don't know that Kamala Harris gains anything from doing another debate.
That's
She did it.
how I personally feel. I'm satisfied with this one. I like yesterday, she was here, like I mentioned, in two different spots. And that arena in Charlotte, I think, holds 8 to 9,000 people. The one in Greensboro holds, I think, 17,000 plus people, and she filled them. And then they showed Trump in that small venue in Arizona, which I happened to see from scrolling through Instagram yesterday. Linda Ronstadt had
Yeah.
endorsed Harris. She was holding a cat, and that theater that he spoke in Arizona has her name on it. I guess she's from Tucson.
Oh, okay.
And she was pissed off that they hosted him in an arena in her name. I guess she's done some advocacy work for women and rape victims and stuff like that. And she was pissed off to have him, just in general, as gross as he is, a convicted felon, and someone that's been found liable for sexual assault, sexual abuse.
Right.
So, she was very pissed off that he was at that arena, but he didn't even fill the arena. And he was like a lunatic. He was still talking about the dog and cat thing in Springfield. And I mean, just doubling down on it.
Well, you have to understand with Donald Trump, the only point he can argue right now is, and he doesn't really have much of an argument, is the immigrant thing. That's why he always goes to the immigrant thing. That's why he's doubling down about this, these Haitians in Ohio. He's got nothing. He can't complain about the economy because everything about the economy is moving in the right direction or is really good. So he doesn't really have much to talk about. He has no policy, he has no strategies. So he's got all he can do is what he's always done is try to make Kamala look worse than him. Well, that's hard to do when Donald Trump is the worst presidential candidate in the history of this country, and Kamala may be the best. You put those two together, the end result is pretty obvious. The best beats the worst every fucking time.
Well, you put my mind at ease. That's kind of how your podcast became my favorite, was like the second time I listened to you, you were like, people look for something to worry about. And I'm like, guilty as charged. Because I feel like as a Democrat, we can't have nice things.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
time things start to go in our favor, something puts it up. And I get so frustrated. And I've always been mad at, I adore the Obamas and I adore Michelle Obama, but when they go low, we go high crap, that doesn't work on Republicans. I mean, it just doesn't. I feel like you have to punch a bully in the mouth with them. And I think trying to take the high road is poor, poor advice. And I have loved that ever since Kamala came along, this version of the Democrat Party is taking some shots at them for once,
Yeah,
finally.
yeah.
Like before the DNC, did you see where they trolled him and they put Project 2025 headquarters on the Trump building there in
Right, right.
Chicago? I loved it. I was like, more of that.
Well,
They said at the college football game where Michigan played, they ran a banner and they like JD Vance loves Ohio State. Just little stuff, just troll the hell out of them. I love it.
well, and going back to the debate thing, I don't know what they gain from another debate. If they stand back, they got tons of money, they got tons of volunteers. If they just keep throwing pot shots at him every day, all day, it's going to continue to get in his head and will be as effective as another debate. The debate has a certain amount of effect, but it's not a decider when it comes down to the election. It helps. It proves a point that Donald Trump is goofy as shit. But let me tell you this, Karen. I know I get a lot of people coming to my page and they go, I'm worried, I'm terrified, I'm worried, and I'm upset. My wife is kind of like that too. And she'll say to me, I'm really worried about whatever we're dealing with. And she says, are you worried? I said, no, I'm not worried. Are you? Why? Don't be worried. And she said this to me one time. She said, somebody's got to be worried. And you know what? Nobody has to be worried. And you know how Karen, you're living in North Carolina. Sounds like you've been married a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like you're healthy.
Yeah.
Everything's going all right. You got a good job. Over your lifetime, how many traumatic, tragic, or terrible things have you gone through? If you're like any of us, we've all gone through that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And there were times during that period that it was so tragic or so traumatic that you go, how can I even get through this, right?
Right.
But here we sit, you and me, just
I know.
talking.
I've
I'm
seen
sick.
a quote that said, so far, our survival rate for our worst days is 100%. So,
Exactly. Exactly. I'm 64. I went through as much shit as anybody in my life that I could possibly know, but 64 years old, I'm sitting here doing the things I want to do, and I'm cool.
yeah.
I may not be happy about everything with the political thing, but you got to take your time and you got to do your job, and eventually you get there. Everybody, and this is what Donald Trump does too. When people panic, what they do is they immediately grab as fast as they can to try to fix things, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you screw up because you're trying anything and everything like Donald Trump is doing, and that's when you screw up. If you have enough discipline where you go, hold on, just okay, let me look at this. Let me think about it. How's it going to work? And that's kind of what I do with the podcast and the TikTok things.
Well, that's what I was listening to you kind of lay out things. I was like, that is reassuring, because I was thinking about like how many donations that she's had
Yeah.
And obviously the money that he's basically grifting off of the Republican Party is coming from a fewer number of donors that are donating exorbitant amounts,
Right.
whereas he's got grassroots, smaller individuals and stuff donating. I know I myself donated money for the first time, and I'm a lifelong Dem. I've back when Hillary ran in 2016, my years are running together now. But I did work like a phone bank for that. But this is the first time I put a little recurring donation for, as long as I keep it going or whatever, it'll run to go to Kamala until November 5th. And then after that, it would go over to the DNC. So trying to put my money where my mouth is. And it's the first time I've done it. So I feel like there's strength in that. I'm hoping each donation is a vote, like as a person that's going to go to and
Right.
vote for her.
Well, and I had a guest on the program. She's on TikTok, Arlene Unfiltered.
Yes, I follow some of her stuff too.
She's a brilliant woman. I love having her on the show. We don't agree on everything, but we look at things differently. She looks at data strictly, and I look at data, but I kind of get a feel for the psychology of it all. But she said something that was very compelling, I think. She said, when you're getting this close to the election, whoever has the most money usually wins. And she says, when you compare polls to donations, she said, in polls, you just got somebody saying something. But with donations, you've got somebody doing something. And that means more when it comes down to
Right.
getting votes, because we can get all the money we want between now and November 5th. It's the votes we got to get. Doesn't matter about the money. It's how many votes.
The polls are infuriating because you don't know how quote unquote scientific they are. You don't, but it frustrates me when I see, like, it was a week or so ago, it was right before the debate. All of a sudden he was up 1% in a national poll. And
Bullshit.
just a couple of days before that, she was at 1.8. So I'm like, for her to lose the 1.8 and him to be up one, that's almost a 3-point swing in a couple of days. And everything in the news cycle about him had been bad. So
Yeah.
I'm like, how is that even possible? But it does play with my mind. It starts making me worry. And that's that, like looking for something to worry about. So that's why when I like listen to you and you're kind of like, you're so sure he's going to win. And I keep hearing, I've heard it on a couple other podcasts as well. And so I'm like, all right, just trust.
Well, let me explain this. These polls, they aren't to inform you who's going to win the race. They're there to fuck with your head.
Right.
Because we don't know who owns these polls, Generally, it's rich people, maybe with an agenda with Donald Trump. We don't know the questions they ask. We don't know who they're asking the questions of. We don't know what they do with the data. These questions can be written in certain ways to get specific answers. So there is, scientifically, it's not real
And to
good
kind of
because
keep the mainstream media with the news story each night, right?
and the mainstream
I've
media
been getting
needs to
really
keep it
frustrated with them.
close.
Yeah.
They need to keep it close. And I just, there, I've said before, I want somebody to explain to me. You had the debate. Donald Trump had the absolute worst performance in the history of all presidential debates. Kamala may have had the best. Donald Trump had nothing but negative stuff in the media about him. How do you explain going up by 1 or 2%? That makes no sense. Certainly scientifically, you can't explain that to me. So then if I can't understand that, why do I trust it? I don't fucking trust it.
Right. And I had just listened to a podcast from Midas Touch yesterday with some guys, I forget their names, that do, I guess, research for the polling and stuff. And they were talking about how some of those polls, basically it was how like the 2022, supposed to be the red wave, how it didn't happen. Like these polls were skewed. And like, I guess some of them are backed by certain Republicans or whatever. And I'm like, is that just because Donald couldn't stand to see himself with poor numbers? Would he rather be surprised at the end? I mean, I just don't.
No, I think the intention is to fuck with Democrats' heads, to make them lack confidence and maybe lose faith and say,
perhaps turn out a little less because we think it's
I'm
already
not even
lost.
going to vote. We already lost. Yeah. That's what they're trying to do. that's not going to work because what Donald Trump has done is caused people to be so fearful they're going out no matter what. So yeah, it's just a game, and
I'm
I don't like
figuring that
listening to it.
with Roe v. Wade being like foremost issue for a great many of us, and I'm hoping, especially in the South, if you turn out women and you turn out the Black vote, I think that it should be significant. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's
Well,
great.
Well, Karen, I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to do what I got to do. You're
All right.
welcome to do what you got to do,
All right.
and we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. We have Karen from North Carolina with us today. This is her first time on the show. We're halfway through. Karen, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
You,
Hang it in there.
I every time I have somebody new come on the show, I'm always amazed by how fortunate I am to have so many people that listen to the show, that come on the show, that are so articulate, have a point of view, and are willing to share that. It's incredibly valuable, not only for the audience, but I learn a lot from people who come on the show too. I may act like I know everything, but I don't know everything. I
Newsflash.
I usually take in a lot of stuff from a lot of places and then kind of put it all together as best I can. You
Look, my
know,
poor husband is probably happy that I found this because he's like, I said, look, it's somebody I can talk politics with. He's like, yeah, I know. He's probably thinking, yes, it gives me a night off.
yeah, I think my wife appreciates the fact that I do as much as I do on TikTok and the podcast. She will talk to me about politics from time to time, but whenever we go out someplace, she'll say, "Do not talk politics." And actually, when I'm out amongst people, I don't talk politics because I talk about it all day. I don't need to talk about it. But inevitably, there will be some dumb Trumplafuck that knows what I think and will have to say something stupid like, he shut down the Keystone Pipeline. Now I got to educate this motherfucker.
Well, you've said before about how, what's it going to be like with these people with the maggots, like once this is over with and he loses, then he has to go away. And I have to play nicely with the people at work, but in general, I don't know why I waited so long, but in the last couple of months, I have basically tried to curate my social media where I don't go on Facebook that much anymore. That used to be my go-to, but pretty much like, especially on Facebook, because I had a bunch of quote unquote friends and I have been weeding that down. And pretty much if anybody is basically just constantly peppering in memes of or comments like they're campaigning for Donald Trump, like they're on his team or something. I have just started weeding them out, unfollow, unfriend, whatever. It's not that I'm trying to be hateful, but at this point, for as long as he's been around, if you are still Team Trump and like culty drinking the Kool-Aid, you are either willfully stupid or racist or both. And I'm
Yeah.
done.
Well, I've told people have asked me, Mike, somebody said that Donald Trump isn't connected to Project 2025. What should I tell them? And I tell people all the same thing because I've tried this for 4 or 5 years now. Don't even bother. Don't even argue with them because you can't change their mind no matter what you say. If you brought Jesus down and Jesus said, listen, dumb fuck, that's not true, they would not believe that. So there's no point really in arguing with them. And that's one thing I figured out on TikTok and occasionally here on the podcast. If I see somebody who's just a flat out Trumplafuck, they're not worth anything to me. So I immediately block them. And I do that because you'll notice, do you watch TikTok too, or just the podcast?
I see the TikToks is something with my algorithm. I have to go look. I have to
Okay.
go like
Okay.
try to like put in, your podcast and pull it up.
But you'll notice there are some TikTok people out there that maybe do something similar to what I do, and they constantly getting reported and videos taken
Right.
down and banned and all that stuff. And when I saw that happening, what I did is I just started blocking them all. I figured if they can't see me, they can't fuck with me,
Right.
and so far it's worked out pretty well. I
I know
wanted
I don't want to create such a bubble that I don't hear of the other side to know what's going on, but I feel like I listen to enough. Um, I've basically started getting my news and information from, the podcasts and stuff like that I like because the mainstream media skews it. if I go by the stuff that I would see from my quote unquote friends from back home or whatever, it's all Trump crap.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to live in an insulated bubble where I don't know the other side, but yeah, I'm totally in the camp of block, delete, not giving them any inroads,
Well,
basically.
I will occasionally listen to some things that are Trump LaFuck related. I can't sit and watch Fox News for more than 5 or 10 minutes. My wife will say, "Let's see what they're saying about it." I go, all right, we'll run it for a little bit, but I really don't. I really don't care because they're absolutely wrong.
I work in a hospital, so sometimes it'll be on the TV in patient rooms and stuff when I'm going up to like deliver meds and
Yeah.
whatnot. And so I hear snippets of it and I think to myself, no wonder they are so stupid if they sit and listen to this all day long. Like if it's just on as background noise all day long,
Right.
how that just pollutes your head.
It does. I wanted to ask you this because you're just the right person to ask this. Before all this other stuff happened, or while all this other stuff was happening, I said over and above everything else, when it comes to this election on November 5th, the biggest issue, the deciding issue is going to be how they overturned Roe v. Wade. We saw the impact in 2022. They thought the women would forget about it. You dumb motherfuckers. Have you never dated or been married? They don't forget about shit. I'm still paying for things I did in the 80s. But the point is I think that's the biggest issue. And you're a woman, you're in the South, you're kind of in a red area, and you work in the medical business. How do you see people reacting, especially people on the red side, to this whole abortion issue?
Oh, they're thrilled. They're thrilled. I
They
mean,
they like that it's being outlawed.
they love it. It infuriates me because it is the quintessential definition of Southern Christian Bible Belt mentality of they think they're so pro-life,
Yeah,
but they are just pro-birth
yeah,
because all they want to do is even the ones that don't have Project 2025 agendas, just like young women. Like I work with a woman that's 27 years old and she's in church all the time, just Southern Baptists. Organized religion is a topic for another day, but I despise it. But anyways, it's spoon fed to them about it's a baby, it's life, it's the most beautiful, precious thing. But in all reality, they'll never vote for anything to help once the child is born. They want to end Head Start. They don't want anything to help the mother. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So basically, they want to basically blame the woman, like she has to wear the scarlet letter,
right,
basically,
right.
and it's her fault that she wouldn't spread her legs as if she did this by herself. But it's all just about having the baby, and they don't want women to have the right. They don't want. I don't think they even. I think in their mind they dismiss that it's an anomaly here or there in a case of rape or incest or miscarriage that you need a D&C or what have you. They don't care. I can't believe women will so freely give away their rights. Now
Yeah.
that's the typical, like in the red areas around here. I have a niece who's 20 years old and very much thinks like me, and we're sending each other stuff back and forth every day. And for young women like her age, that's what it infuriates me. Like that's what Roe is the biggest issue to me in this.
Hmm.
I would vote
Me too.
Democrat anyways, but just long term, it needs to be codified. This needs to never happen again. This is ridiculous. But yeah, it's really, I'm 53 and I've gone through menopause, and so the childbearing part of it is irrelevant to me. But for me, it's women's health in general.
Right.
It's, I mean, it's just, and it's preposterous that she has less rights at 20 years old than I had all of my reproductive years.
Right. Right.
It's insane. It's infuriating. And then when you get into cases of rape or incest, and then like the whole Project 2025 part where they would want to charge young women who go to another state. I mean, it's beyond.
What's the abortion laws in North Carolina?
North Carolina is not zero, but it's damn near. I mean, I don't know the exact, but it's like
It's tight.
Yeah, very. It's not
Okay.
zero, but it's very restrictive. We do
Well,
have a wonderful Democratic governor, Roy Cooper, but all of the courts and stuff like that, it's very Republican.
let me ask you this. Maybe it's not so much in the smaller town areas, but 75% of the people in this country supposedly support Roe v. Wade. So that tells us some Republicans, presumably younger Republicans,
Right.
support Roe v. Wade. Do you see any of that? I mean, you're a pharmacy technician. There's got to be people getting birth control pills, and they have to know that could be outlawed and that sort of thing. Do you
I
ever get
don't
a sense of
think
that?
I don't think that they use the foresight for that. I think that for them, it's more like they love to get on the moral high horse about
Yeah.
if you're promiscuous and using, that's their big thing. They always act like it's used by lower income women go to like Planned Parenthood and they're using it as a form of birth control. And I feel like that's very much a small percentage.
It is.
And so, but that's the kind of look down your nose kind of thing, superior thing that I see a lot of. They don't look at the long range things with like birth control and IVF and even like in cases of rape or incest or miscarriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then of course, I mean, even little stuff like when Plan B came around several years ago, I worked in retail pharmacy at the time, and I'm the technician. My pharmacist, she's very like Southern Baptist. She's like very much against Plan B, which, Plan B is not abortion. Plan B prevents implantation, right? When someone would want to buy it, she would refuse to sell it. And I said to her, you cannot refuse to sell it. That's illegal. And she said, I'm not going to sell it because I don't believe in it. If you want to sell it, you can. So I did. And then the next time someone came up to buy one, she said, Karen, you go sell it to them. You're a heathen. I was like, I'm a heathen. I will go sell it to them. I would rather sell them to, I mean, why would you deprive women of that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Same thing. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I had a
no.
pharmacist one night. The law at the time, now this is several years ago. I'm not well versed on the current one, but I think it's the same. At the time, a female could buy Plan B at 16. A male could buy it at 18, I believe. And so I think the girl was too shy to come up to the counter and ask for it. Now it's out on the floor, but at the time it was behind the pharmacy counter. And I think she was too shy to come up and ask for it. And her boyfriend came and asked for it. And I was working with a pharmacist who refused to sell it to him. And I said to her, I said, why won't you sell it to him? He's the right age. He's old enough. And she said, how do I know that the girl that he had sex with that she might not be old enough, that she might be underage? I said, how do you know when you fill a Percocet for somebody, they don't go on the street corner and sell it? I mean, that's not your job,
Yeah. 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 It's a
Look,
touchy.
what applies is my new shirt. Mind your own damn business.
I saw that. I saw that. Words directly out of my governor's mouth.
Right. That's why I bought it. Yep. But yeah, mind your own business. Don't worry about what people are doing with their bodies.
I don't know if you saw, I don't have it here with me now, but when I had Old Soul on, she had sent my wife and I a t-shirt.
Love her.
Yeah. I mean, when you hear those people that think it's all about promiscuous women and not thinking and they should not get abortions, all they have to do is listen to some of Old Soul's stories. She's in the mix. She's in the middle of this. She's dealing with these people. There are some truly tragic stories. And I'm glad Kamala, during the debate, made that comment. I told Old Soul this too. A woman's having a miscarriage. She can't get any treatment. She's got to sit in a parking lot until she's sick enough to come back in. And that's ridiculous. If one woman is going through that, we're doing the wrong fucking thing.
Not only that, I mean, when you're miscarrying and that fetus is dying or dead inside of you, if you do not get the medical services that are needed, you can become septic. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I don't know if you saw, I watched the whole DNC, like I was late. I stayed up late, was exhausted at work the next day. But I mean, it was just exciting to me. It felt so nice for a change. but they had like 3 or 4 different testimonials regarding different
Right.
issues.
Right.
And I mean, that I was just sitting there crying listening to them. I mean, you go from the couple who, had fertility trouble, was so happy to be pregnant, and then she lost it, and then trying to get medical care, all the way to that young 12-year-old girl who was a victim of incest and had to, cross state lines to go and get treatment.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Since we're talking in the sexual realm, I need to bring something up that's a little gossipy, but because it has to do with Donald Trump, I feel compelled to do it anyway. You,
Uh-huh.
you know that Donald Trump is now taking advice from this woman, Laura Loomer,
Yes.
this ghoulish looking fucking creature who is
What has she
absolutely
done to her
racist.
face at only 31 years old? My
Well,
God.
well, yeah, yeah. My wife goes, Jesus Christ. But now what they're saying though, Karen, is that not only is she advisor, there might be a little love affair going on between the two of them.
It
He's
seems
78,
like it.
31.
I was laughing because, you saw, I think y'all were talking about it earlier, where her and Marjorie Taylor Greene were having a little Instagram war or something, or Twitter war or something, fighting about Loomer had made that awful comment about if Kamala gets in the White House, it'll smell like curry, and it's
Yeah,
really
just
racist crap.
ridiculous shit.
And Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, got on her high horse and said that was a bridge too far and blah, 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 when she said crap just as bad. But she doesn't like this chick because this chick's got more personal time and FaceTime with Donald, I guess. But it's kind of funny that, they're kind of going after each other and whatnot. But it does seem like this, I don't like, I just don't get it. But I mean, that Loomer woman seems like completely awful.
But who knew that there was a market for a 350-pound orange malignant narcissist that has
I guess
shitty pants?
I
Everybody's got a
know.
kink, I guess.
I know. I was reading some like jokey post about that earlier because they were like, Donald's banging her, and other people were commenting. They were like, "There's no way he's banging anything, but she's probably,
Yeah,
going
yeah.
downtown on him." But
Uh, well,
yeah,
here's
gross
the other.
visual.
Somebody probably needs to pull her aside and say, "Listen, man, if you're going to try to take him for all he's got, understand, E. Jean Carroll and Letitia James already did that
That's
shit."
what I was gonna say. I feel like he's only supporting Melania right now by grifting off his
Yeah,
donations. What's gonna happen when he can't campaign anymore? I
yeah.
think Melania is gonna leave him and divorce him anyhow. But where's he gonna get the money to pay her?
Yeah, well, that's what I've always said. Once this election, we've all been hanging on a ledge waiting for this election. He gets protected. Everything's put off to that point. Now we're 50 days away from it. Just ride it out. Expect not much to happen because the Republicans don't do anything. But once that election is over and he's beaten decisively, the world implodes on Donald Trump. He's got no protection. He'll be out of money. The Republicans won't support him because yet again he lost another election decisively, and he's of no value to the Republicans anymore.
And
Once
he
Donald
has
Trump is,
basically put a taint on that party that's going to take them a while to get rid of.
if they can at all, they may have to burn down and regroup and come up with
Yeah,
something different because
like
he's tore
I'm
it
no
down.
fan of the Cheneys. As a matter of fact, I told you in one of the emails I sent you. I mean, I used to always tell my husband back in the George W. Bush days. I used to tell him, I said, Dick Cheney is the damn devil. Like
There's no
he is.
question.
I mean, he is the damn devil. And here I had listened to Liz Cheney's audiobook. I'd listened to her book on Audible, basically. I'd listened to the audiobook while I was at work, like stocking stuff and whatever. And her descriptions of January the 6th, they were chilling. I mean,
Yeah.
because she was obviously there as firsthand account. And while I would never vote for her, I don't support her politics. What she went through that day, and then subsequently trying to be one of the only people in that party with any sort of integrity, it was, I mean, I think basically the one shred of integrity that Mike Pence had left, he used it. But like she was just describing like, they screaming to like hang Pence and all this mess. And I'm just like, we can never go back to these kind of days. That's why it gave me anxiety that when Biden dropped out, and I just thought, oh my God, here we go.
Yeah, absolutely. You froze there for a little bit.
Are
You're
you
not
still
moving
there
your.
at like froze?
I'm still here too. You froze too. Let's just see if this goes. I'll try to talk a little further here and see if we can't unfreeze it. Um, we are. Well, looks like we may. I'm not sure what's going on here. Hold on a second. All right. I think. Okay, I think we're back now. We had a little issue with Zoom. Fuck you, Zoom. I'm thinking about doing it on YouTube eventually, but we're on Zoom now. I think we have Karen back. Karen, can you hear me? Karen's still jammed up here. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do some things, and we'll come back right after this. All right, we are back here, and we had a little technical difficulty, as tends to be the case with Zoom from now and again. I
I
was
was thinking
just
I rambled so much I pissed you off.
no. You can't piss me off. I listen to Trumplefucks all day. If they don't piss me off, you're certainly not going to piss me off. No, not at all. So anyway, you're a blue dot in this red area, and I would imagine it does give you kind of a feeling, sometimes a depressing feeling that the world is against you and you're the only one that has half a brain.
Yes,
What you have to understand is there's a lot of other people that are
feel that way.
like-minded. That are like-minded. I mean, I got a lot of people following me on TikTok. We got a lot of people listening to the podcast. There are a lot of people out there, and we were talking about the abortion issue. I have to believe that when you take a constitutional right away from 50% of this country, that being women, that has a significant effect. We saw the effect in 2022 when there was going to be a red wave, and I do think that's going to have even a bigger impact uh, in this election in on November 5th. Now, I know there's a lot of people that are nervous. You seem pretty confident now. Is there a part of you that still thinks, "Oh shit, it could happen"?
Look, I'm a Braves fan and I'm used to losing. And so I'm just like, I'm not going to really have peace until November the 5th. But
Right.
I do feel my mind is more at ease now than it has been. I think seeing her performance in the debate, knowing how much money is rolling in. We didn't even mention Taylor Swift. I'm a little old. I'm not a Swiftie,
Yeah.
but I know some of her music, but I can't sit here and say like I'm her biggest fan. But I do believe, like I had read where at the end, obviously it came right across my phone at the end of the debate that she had announced her support for Harris. And somebody had said it was like, basically the chair of the head to Donald to kind of finish him off that day. But I do believe, like, just with her giving that link to vote in her support, that what it's been close to 400,000 people or something had
At
gone.
least, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking the more young people that go and register, if they'll actually vote, then that the numbers they should be decisive.
Well, that's one thing I doesn't don't think show up in the polls. In 2024, millennials and Gen Zs will play a big role in this election. There's 70% that will vote Democrat. 2028, they're going to have the majority. The trend is going away from the Republicans, and that may be why they are so desperate right now. Like what we were talking about before with this whole thing with Ohio and the
Mhm.
Haitians eating pets. Um, they're at a point now where they know they're going to lose. So they're like a rat in a corner and they're going to do anything just to survive. And I'm afraid to tell you this, regardless of how egregious it is right now, it's probably going to get worse before November 5th.
Yeah, yeah, I know. They probably are it's gonna get more desperate and stuff, but I do think that all the young people, it makes a huge difference. I definitely believe they're more progressive. The culture's more open now. The things that, used to be taboo as far as like, the LGBTQ and all that stuff is much more widely accepted.
Yeah.
And the young people, you know, they've been brought up with a culture more of acceptance. So naturally they're more democratic. And as long as they'll get out there and vote, yeah, I think they'll definitely make a difference. Them and women in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I presume your husband is of a similar mindset too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be married as long as you are.
Right. Yeah, I was telling you in the beginning when he and I first met, trying to go back to I think Clinton was in office. And I was always a fan of Clinton, even though he's a hound dog. I was like, the economy was great. And so yeah, I was I always kind of liked the guy. But my husband was a Republican at the time, and I obviously very opinionated, and you're married, we are quite vocal with our opinions.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I would always point stuff out to him. And then, especially over time, when it got to like George W. Bush, and like, I remember seeing a skit when George W. Bush first became president, was on SNL, and they showed him at a little tiny kid's desk next to the big desk in the Oval Office, and they had Dick Cheney sitting at the big
right,
desk.
right, right.
And so ever since then, I kept pointing out ridiculous stuff that the Republican Party said and did. And then all of the crap during the Bush administration, the lying us into Iraq, after 9/11, all that stuff. And over time, he has become a Democrat. He's registered as independent. So, because he wants the freedom to decide which primary he can vote in. So he keeps himself registered as independent, but he votes Democrat now.
So
So
you pretty much indoctrinated him.
I converted. My work is done with him
Well,
on
that
that front.
what do you think happens November 5th? Say I'm right. Kamala Harris wins decisively, maybe even a landslide. I'm not leaving that out as an option because it's a crazy thing to say, but everything's going wrong for Donald Trump. Everything's going right for Kamala Harris.
I'm
Anything could
not
happen.
always the most positive person. I can sometimes be a glass half empty person, but more and more, I keep finding myself thinking that a lot of these battleground states are going to go blue.
Yeah.
Um, Potentially even Florida and Texas, even though they aren't technically battleground states, potentially. If not, they're morphing closer and closer each election cycle to go in blue.
Well, they put a lot of weight on North Carolina. It's not like you have a ton of electoral votes. It's probably similar to what we have here in Minnesota.
How many
Uh,
does Minnesota have?
10, I think.
North Carolina has 16, I heard
Oh,
today.
yeah, more than I thought. But people think a lot hinges on North Carolina. That
I
electoral vote.
heard, I think it's because we're in the Eastern time zone. Of course, Pennsylvania is too, and I think they have 19 electoral votes.
Yeah.
But they were basically saying, you know, Arizona and like Wisconsin, they're going to come in Wisconsin will be an hour after us. Arizona will probably be a couple hours, but North Carolina being on East Coast, results will come in. So if North Carolina goes blue, it won't be enough votes to put her over the top, but it should be pretty much like a good trend of, how these battleground states are going to go.
Well, that blue belt, the steel belt, I think they call it, or whatever, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. If Kamala gets those three, and I think there's a decent chance she will, that may be enough to win it for her. If Florida flips or Texas flips, it's over.
Yeah.
There's no coming back from that. There's
Look,
no
I even found
path.
myself getting greedy with this Springfield, Ohio mess and eating the pets. I'm like, wouldn't it be a kick in the pants if Ohio would go blue? I know that's probably reaching, but
Well, it may
I
be
wonder.
reaching, but I thought that same thing. When you see what's happening to Springfield, Ohio, by way of Donald Trump's rhetoric,
And
uh,
JD Vance is his home state.
right, right. How do Ohioans react to that? Does somebody in
Right.
another city see what's going on in Springfield and feel any empathy for that?
Or think it could be us, it could be our city that they do this to. I don't know. I keep hoping. I'm like, it's just like how you said how you feel like when you're a blue dot in a red state, you feel like you're the only one that's like sane. Like how does everyone around me not see what's going on in this world? How does everyone around me not see what a liar he is? That he never really gives any facts. He always just talks in the same like kindergarten level adjectives. It's the
Right.
biggest, it's the best. I have the largest crowds. And the preposterous crap, like in the debate when he said, talking about like the Hamas and Israel thing, I could have solved that in 24 hours. Are you kidding me? They've been fighting since the dawn of time. You could have solved it in 24 hours?
Well, you had 4 years to get out of Afghanistan and you didn't do it. So,
No, he left a hell of a mess for Biden and then pins it on them now.
right, right, exactly. And it was his plan. So it's,
Yeah.
uh, what is it with Ohio? I mean, you have some big towns in Ohio. There's got to be some blue voters in Ohio.
You would
Uh,
think, I mean, you would think because it's a lot of blue collar workers, like
yeah,
Akron's like Rust Belt. I mean, you got what, Cleveland, Akron, Cincinnati. You've got some big cities,
Dayton. Yeah,
Columbus.
yeah. There's a lot of them, and you would think that it could easily turn blue. Have you? You know, everybody talks about gerrymandering. You know, and setting it up to game the system for the votes and the
Carolina.
districts. Do you see that at all down in North Carolina?
Terrible. I sent you an article. You probably haven't had a chance to see it, or you might get so much stuff. I don't know. But I sent you an article. North Carolina is the only state, to my knowledge, so far. With the RFK thing, with him backing Trump, he was on the ballot in a certain number of states. I know it costs a certain amount of money to get on the ballot, but he was on the ballot in a certain number of states. One of them was North Carolina. When he agreed to back Trump, he selectively went to all of the states that are battleground states
Right,
and get his name taken off the ballot.
right,
None of them would do it because it was too late. It
right.
was, I think they said the cutoff was like August the 23rd, and he did it on August the 26th or something. But he appealed it in North Carolina. The North Carolina Supreme Court is stacked with Republicans. I think there's only two Democrats on it. And he's coming off the ballot in North Carolina. I don't think that is really going to skew it right now. I mean, looking at the crowds that Kamala just had in Charlotte and
Right.
Greensboro, I don't think RFK is the defining factor. But the fact of the matter is that there was a big thing article about the North Carolina Supreme Court today, and that saying that these same Republicans that allowed this to happen, which is basically it's illegal. They're just, if this was a Democrat one to do that, do you think they would have made an exception when it was
Right.
3 days late? They wouldn't.
Well, one of the
Um,
things they say it
but
did
they're the same
was,
ones that gerrymandered. They passed laws to gerrymander.
well, what, I was listening to a story about RFK taking his name off, and it's almost as if he waited till after the deadline, because they have to go through the process then and the appeal and all that stuff. And while it may not change how people vote, it does shorten the time for early voting, and
Well,
they
that's
think
what
that
they
might have
said,
some
that in North
impact.
Carolina they had to redraft the ballots to take
Right.
his name off of it. And it affects, we have a large military community here because of Fort Bragg, Camp Lejeune. And there are military people that are stationed overseas, and it's putting a crunch on the time of getting them their ballot and then being able to mail it back in,
Right. Right.
stuff like that. So it's little ways that Republicans try to game the system, and they always freaking do their dirty little tricks.
Yeah.
Always.
I got to talk to you about, and we know your governor is a
Mhm.
pretty solid guy. He was up for the VP.
We love him here. He took himself out of consideration for the VP to save the state from Mark Robinson, his lieutenant governor.
That was my question. This Mark Robinson fucking clown, he
He
says
is a
some crazy
dirtbag.
shit. You have a different situation than we have in Minnesota. When we voted for Governor Walz, he had a lieutenant governor, and they were all both voted together. But you vote separately for governor and lieutenant governor, right?
I'm originally from Virginia. We moved here 20 years ago. So this is basically it's home for the last 20 years. But
Yeah.
Virginia is kind of the same way. It's a ticket. Like, your governor picks their lieutenant governor, their running mate or whatever, just like they kind of do for president.
Right.
But here you can have a Democratic governor and a Republican lieutenant governor, and it just sucks. And basically, that's why Roy Cooper took his name out of consideration. We're hoping that since he didn't, really get to give himself consideration for the vice presidency, that maybe he will run for the Senate and give us a fighting chance of having a Democratic senator.
Yeah.
But
Well, how is it you get a Democratic governor, but a radical right wing lieutenant governor? I mean, you would presume people
I
who voted for the
feel
governor
like
would be the same people.
our largest like Democratic progressive communities are the big cities. It's going to be Raleigh, Charlotte, and even over like Asheville, where App State is, App State University. You have like a lot of Democratic pockets there. And so I think that when voter turnout is kind of low and you don't turn out lower income people and stuff, the main Democratic voters are from those areas, and they are, I guess, large enough numbers that they can get the governor elected. But I feel like the rednecks resent that they have a Democratic governor, so they have to go and put some radical asshole in as the lieutenant governor. I mean, that's my opinion.
Now, when you said your governor took his name out of the running for the vice presidential nomination, he was doing it to save the state. And I want to ask you about that, because I heard some interesting stories about this lieutenant governor. Like, whenever the governor leaves the state, this clown thinks he's in charge
Mhm.
and tries to do some crazy shit. Is that true?
Oh yeah. And he's like the most radical, disgusting type of MAGA person. Like he he believes like some women need beaten, that kind of thing. He's zero abortion, doesn't matter if life of the mother is in jeopardy, doesn't matter rape, incest, and then come to find out that his wife had had an abortion years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I think prior to marrying him, but it's just that him and his wife used to run daycares in this state, and they were shut down. They were fined. They were breaking all kinds of laws, poor conditions. I mean,
Wow.
he's just scum.
A piece of shit.
Hmm.
He also said some people need killing.
Yeah,
I think he
some people
said
need
that.
help. Hmm.
Yeah. How do people react to that in North Carolina now? I mean, obviously, there's got to be
Well,
some people
I
that
told you
don't
this was the first year
buy
I
into it.
donated money. I donated to Josh Stein as well, who's running for governor because Roy Cooper is in his second term. He can't run again. So I sent money to Josh Stein too, not much, but a little bit. And he supposedly, I think, now has a double-digit lead. So I'm
Mm.
pretty confident that Mark Robinson will hopefully go away after this, at least for the time being.
Who's running? What kind of people do you have running for lieutenant governor this time around?
That would be actually the lieutenant governor. I forgot the person's name. I'm going to vote straight ballot, so it
But
doesn't
but
matter.
but you
Yeah,
don't have another crazy one, do you?
not to my knowledge, not to the level of Robinson.
Wow. How is the legislature in North Carolina? Is it strong Republican? You said the Supreme Court was a Republican.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a lot of gerrymandering here, and the current like court had kind of approved the lines for certain areas, so they try to kind of keep the Democrats in like one little pocket or whatever, where the votes don't count as much. I think they try to suppress turnout. So, you know,
So what do you think? What do you think? What do you think this world will look like if Kamala does what I think and wins decisively, and we're able to keep the House and the Senate with a Democratic majority? What do you think the feeling of the country is going to be? How are you going to feel? Is it going to finally feel that you've come out the other side?
I'm gonna feel like I could take a breath. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I always said to my husband, like, when Obama first got in, he had a majority initially,
Hmm.
and he tried to be congenial and reach across the aisle, and they basically just shit on him, and he didn't get anything done in the small window of time that he had to like really work his agenda. And so I always have said to my husband, if a Democrat gets in office and they can have the House and the Senate their way, they need to ram whatever they want to ram down their throat, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney style, and not give a crap that you hurt their feelings and whatever. Just get your shit done. That's when they need to codify Roe. They need to
No, I agree.
they need to get their stuff done while they have the numbers, because always, there's that midterm election looming and you might lose it.
Well, if they beat the Republicans, they need to bury the Republicans when they get the power. Like you say, they need to do a lot of stuff so that there's no question in 2028 as to who is going to win. The Republicans are going to be trying to clean up their mess and pick up the wreckage, so they're going to have a tough time anyway. But the Democrats really have an opportunity if they win the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They have an opportunity, and I'm hoping against hope that they jump on that opportunity. It'll be good for the country. It'll be good for them in the next election. My only concern about this is, while I do like Democrats better than Republicans, they're all still politicians.
Right.
They all still can rest on their laurels when they don't have to. You mentioned codifying Roe v. Wade. Obama, and not just Obama, other presidents could have codified Roe v. Wade, but they thought that they weren't ever
It
going
never
to
get
need to.
returned.
Well, hopefully they learned a fucking lesson here,
Mhm.
because you can't trust Republicans if you give them a
And that's a
chance.
lesson I hope Republicans have learned too, because they wanted this so badly for so long to overturn Roe. And now that they've got it, I think it's going to cost them many elections to come.
Oh, I agree. I agree. It was kind of
Like,
like,
be careful what you want, what you wish for.
yeah, I don't know that the Supreme Court did the Republicans any favor, because they used to campaign on Roe v. Wade. They used to fundraise on Roe v. Wade, and they really can't anymore. They're the dogs that caught the car. So what the fuck do they do now? Now they talk about immigration. They've always got some grievance that they have to argue about in order to scare people. And
Well, to
that's what they
me,
do.
the immigration thing is just, I'm in the South, so I guess it boils down to a lot of black and white to me. But to me, when they say immigrant, they might as well be saying black. Like or brown, any pigment, non-white. It's just, they wouldn't care about immigration so much. It wouldn't be such a bad word to them if it was not brown people,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Both of Donnie's wives, well, two of Donnie's wives have been immigrants, you know,
Yeah.
but they're white, so they're desirable, It's
Well,
just,
Well, Donnie's said that as much. We don't mind immigrants if they come from Scandinavia or something like that. It's
I
just,
know my husband laughs as like, he's like, nobody from Scandinavia wants to fucking come here. They've got it good over there,
yeah, exactly. They're
you know.
socialists.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, their health care is better as far as, I mean, I know that there's caveats. They have long waits sometimes for procedures and whatnot, but they seem to be doing well with the universal health care. They seem to be doing well with their education and not having all the student loans.
right.
They have shorter work weeks, more vacation days. They treat their employees, their workers better. So yeah,
So, so,
Scandinavian people are not in a rush to come here.
so Karen, you have kids, right?
No,
No
childless cat
kids.
lady, dog
That's
lady.
right. That's right. Childless cat lady.
Hmm.
Um, you apparently you don't count to
No, no, I really don't count to JD because, like, not only do I not have kids, the next thing he said after that to offend women was that menopausal and postmenopausal women's role was to raise their grandchildren or to help raise the grandchildren. And since I didn't have kids, then I've like forfeited that role.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like, what JD fails to realize is that I've been working since I was 16 years old. I mean, I did babysitting crap prior to that, but I've had a job where I've paid taxes since I was 16 years old.
right.
And by not having children and having dependents, I've paid quite a fair amount of taxes, but apparently
Well,
that doesn't matter.
I have a lot of friends that don't have kids. I have friends that do have kids. I don't think of them any differently. Uh, it's, some people don't want to do it. And and actually uh, having raised kids, two boys, I get it, man. It ain't fun. I'd be
Well,
so rich
for
right
me, it
now.
was like, it was not one of those things where I said, oh, I'm not going to have kids. It just, infertility basically, and just
Right.
don't have the financial resources to adopt or do IVF or whatever. So, it is what it is, but it's it's kind of insulting for him to make those blanket comments when you don't know people's stories.
Yeah. How does that make you feel when he says that? Do you take that personally?
It does grind my gears a bit, yeah.
Okay. I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And then you have somebody like Elon Musk, or as Donald Trump calls him, Leon Musk. You heard what he said to Taylor Swift, right?
Leon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't know a lot about him, right? I just know the Tesla thing, whatever. And I'm like, I don't have much money. We are paycheck to paycheck people still, even at this age. But I wouldn't have a Tesla if somebody freaking gave it to me. I don't want anything that helps line that fool's pockets. I can't stand him. And then that mess that he said to Taylor, I'm just like, I think he has like 12 kids by 3 or 4 different women.
Yeah.
So how nice of him to offer to impregnate her. I was trying to read the between the lines on the post. Was he offering to impregnate her? Was he low key, thinly threatening some sort of sexual assault? Like it, it was disgusting.
Yeah. But she's got a boyfriend, Travis Kelsey, who's kind of a big motherfucker.
I know.
I'd hate to
But
be Elon
I
Musk
read
or nothing.
somebody said that Elon knows jujitsu, but I saw a picture of him that they put next to Kelsey on something, and he was in like swim trunks. And I'm thinking, even if he knows jujitsu, I think Kelsey could probably snap him like a twig. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in the area I live, there are a few of those Tesla pickup trucks.
oh my God, those things are awful.
Those are ugly. It's like putting a sign on your back that says "I'm a douchebag," and
Yeah,
everybody who sees them laughs at them. You know.
and knows they're a douchebag.
Now, do you live in a rural area?
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay.
It is an agricultural county. Like, I mean, I think the population. I live in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and I think the population is about 55,000 in
Okay.
this city. Um, you'll have kind of like a city area where we have a lot of chain restaurants and stuff like that. Um, but you can drive 2, 3 minutes in one direction, and you'll see tobacco fields and cotton fields. So it's agricultural too.
But you have a lot of pickup trucks down there.
Oh God, yeah.
You think any Republicans down there would actually buy that pickup truck to try to work for
Hell
fucking
no.
land?
No.
Now, you would get your ass kicked if you did something like that.
No, that would be like some like tech bro or something like in Raleigh, perhaps in like the Triangle area where they do there's a lot of tech businesses up there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, Kara, excuse me, I'm still getting over this cold.
That's all right.
We're going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for coming on. Not so hard, huh?
Not so hard.
Pretty easy. Yeah.
Yep, enjoyable. You gave my husband a night off from hearing my politics and ramblings of everything I heard on podcasts today.
My Venmo is. I'm kidding. But no, I appreciate it very much for coming on. Now feel free to email me anytime you feel like coming on. We'd love to hear from you. You did a great job. I know the people will
Thank
love
you.
you, and it's always great to meet somebody new on the Rational Boomer podcast. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. This was most unexpected today, and I enjoyed myself, so I appreciate it.
When you said you wanted to be on and Ed dropped off, I said, well, we'll just see if she wants to go on today. And there's a method to the madness there. It is the more you have to think about it, if you're nervous by nature, the more you have to think about it, the harder it's going to be. If you just get thrown into the fire, then you got to react. And you did
It's
perfectly.
funny too, because I checked my email messages. We were getting the stuff together to feed the dogs. We've got 4 dogs. And my husband works an odd shift, and he was like, after we feed the dogs, he was going to bed and stuff. And I said, oh my God, he just asked me what I'd be willing to do tonight. And I thought, what the hell?
The hell? Okay. Okay. Well, the nice thing about this is if disaster befalls us in doing a podcast, it's recorded. It's not live. You could say, "Don't run that shit," but fortunately, it worked out perfectly. So I'm glad we did it, and don't hesitate to let me know when you want to do it again. I tell people, and I'll tell you. You probably heard this. I don't typically run around saying, "Hey, do you want to be on a show? Do you want to be on a show?" Because I don't know what other people's schedules are. I'm here every day. So just let me know. If I can't do it that day, it'll be another day and we'll get it worked out, but we'll get it done. So I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right.
Happy to do it.
All right. Well, let's turn North Carolina blue and
Let's
fucking
do it, please.
blow this clown out and let's send him and his girlfriend wherever the fuck they're gonna go.
Yeah, he and Loomer can go off somewhere until they lock him up.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, for those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. Hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.